Story 1, The Gas Station Man. I never liked night drives. There's something about being on the road after midnight that makes the world feel wrong. Empty highways, the hum of tires, the way your headlights only cut through a sliver of blackness. It all feels like the edge of something you're not supposed to see. That night, I was driving home from a late shift. My car was running low on gas, the needle flirting with empty. I knew I had to stop. The only station open at that hour was an old one on Route 19, the kind of place you pass 100 times but never really notice. The sign buzzed with a sickly neon light. The lot was empty. I pulled up to the pump, stepped out, and the air felt colder than it should have. No breeze, just a still, heavy kind of cold. I swiped my card at the machine. That's when I froze. On the screen, instead of welcome or select fuel type, 3 words appeared in blocky green text. Hello, my name. At first, I thought maybe my card had some weird setting, maybe it linked my name somehow. But no, that wasn't how it worked. My stomach tightened. I looked around. The station was empty. No attendant, no other cars. Just me and the flickering lights. I pressed the button again, thinking it would reset. The screen blinked. Don't turn around. I swear my blood turned to ice. Of course, instinct made me want to look immediately, but something deep in my brain screamed not to. I gripped the nozzle, staring at the screen, heart pounding. The text changed again. He's watching you. I spun around so fast I nearly tripped. But there was nothing. Just the wide, cracked lot and the empty road stretching into the dark. No cars. No people. And yet, I felt it, the unmistakable prickling weight of eyes on me. I shoved the nozzle back into place and jumped into my car. My hands shook as I fumbled the keys. That's when I noticed something else. In the glass of the station's front door, I saw movement. A man. Or something shaped like one. He was standing inside the station just past the counter. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like he was studying me. I could only make out the outline in the flickering neon. Long arms. Too long. I blinked and he was gone. The door hadn't opened. No sound. Just empty again. I should have driven off right then. But I told myself I was imagining it. Sleep deprived. Overthinking. Still, my tank was nearly empty. 2 minutes, I whispered to myself. Just 2 minutes. I got back out, swiped my card again, and the pump started. The screen flickered once more. Bad choice. The handle vibrated in my hand harder and harder, until it felt like it would burst. Gas splashed onto the pavement. The stench filled my nose. I yanked it free, cursing, and that's when I heard it. Tup, tup, tup. Knuckles on glass. I turned toward the station. The man was back. This time, his face was pressed against the door. Only it wasn't a face. Not really. His skin looked stretched, pulled too tight across his skull, lips cracked into a smile that didn't reach the dead, glassy eyes. And he was tapping. Slowly. Rhythmically. Like he was waiting for me to notice. I stumbled back toward my car, gas still dripping from the nozzle onto the pavement. My shoes squeaked on the wet ground. Then the station lights cut out. For a second, everything went black. When they flickered back on, he wasn't at the door anymore. He was closer. Right outside on the other side of the pump. I bolted into my car, slammed the lock down, and turned the key. The engine sputtered. Once. Twice. Nothing. I looked up and he was there. Standing inches from my window, bent low enough that his face was level with mine. His eyes weren't human. They were bottomless, black pits that seemed to swallow the light. His hand rose slowly, and he traced a single word into the fog of my window with one long, cracked fingernail. Stay. I don't know where the strength came from, but I kept turning the key, whispering, come on, come on. The engine roared to life. I slammed into gear and tore out of that station, tires screeching. I didn't stop until I was halfway home. Only then did I risk looking in the rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. But the back seat wasn't. Just for a split second, as the headlights of a passing car lit up the interior, I saw him. Folded up in the shadows, too big for the space, grinning. And then the light passed and he was gone. I haven't been back to that gas station since. I looked it up online a few days later, searching for anything, an explanation, a story, a prank. What I found made me sick. The place had closed down 5 years ago. Abandoned after the owner went missing. Story 2, The Man in the Elevator. I used to think working late nights in the office was peaceful. No phones ringing. No bosses breathing down your neck. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the quiet clicking of my keyboard. But after what happened, I'll never stay past midnight again. It was 1:45. I was the only one left on the 14th floor. The city outside was silent, skyscrapers like dark teeth against the night sky. I packed up my laptop, stretched, and hit the button for the elevator. The hallway was long and empty. Carpeted. Too quiet. When the elevator finally dinged, the doors slid open, and my breath caught in my throat. There was a man inside. At least I thought it was a man. He wore a business suit, neat and pressed. But his face, it wasn't there. Just smooth, pale skin where his eyes and mouth should have been. And yet, somehow, I knew he was staring at me. I froze. My hand hovered in the air. My brain screamed to run. But then the man stepped aside as if to let me in. Like this was completely normal. The doors began to close. Instinct kicked in. I lunged forward, hitting the button to keep them open. And just like that, the elevator was empty. No man. No one. Just polished steel walls and the faint reflection of my own terrified face. I should have taken the stairs. But it was 14 floors down, and I told myself exhaustion was making me hallucinate. So I stepped in, pressed L for lobby, and leaned against the wall. The doors shut. The elevator lurched. I watched the floor numbers tick down. 13, 12, 11. Then it stopped. Not at a floor. Just in between. The lights flickered. And in the reflection of the steel wall behind me, I saw him again. Standing right over my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. Just the empty car. But the reflection didn't match. In the mirrored wall, he was still there. Closer now. His featureless face tilted as though studying me. And his hand, too long, too pale, rose slowly, pressing flat against the reflective steel. Only, I felt it. Cold fingers brushing the back of my neck. I slammed the emergency button. Nothing happened. The elevator groaned, jerked violently, then shot upward. Floor numbers blurred, 15, 20, 25, faster and faster, far past the building's height. The air grew heavy, suffocating as if the walls were closing in. I screamed, pounding the doors. Finally, it screeched to a halt. The doors slid open. But it wasn't the lobby. It wasn't even my building. I was staring into a hallway I'd never seen before. Dark concrete walls. Exposed pipes dripping water. No signs, no lights, just endless shadows. And standing in the middle of it was the man. Closer than ever. This time, his face wasn't blank anymore. It was mine. I stumbled back, slamming my fists on the closed door button. The doors groaned shut. The elevator dropped, hard, like free fall. My stomach lurched into my throat. And just before the doors sealed, I saw him tilt his head. And smile. My smile. I must have blacked out. When I came to, the elevator was back in the lobby. The security guard was shaking me awake. He asked if I was okay, said I looked pale as death. I glanced at the mirrored wall. My reflection stared back. But for half a second, it blinked out of sync. And that's when I realized, the face in the mirror wasn't mine anymore. Story 3, The Substitute. When our substitute teacher wrote his name on the board, it was the same teacher who died last year. High school always had a weird vibe in the rain. The halls felt quieter. The lights dimmer. Like the storm outside leaked into the building itself. That day the air smelled like wet concrete and chalk. Everyone dragged into class late, dripping from the downpour. Our history teacher was out sick, so we had a sub. No big deal. Or at least, that's what I thought. When the man walked in, nobody said a word. He looked older. Tired. His gray suit was dated, a little worn. His hair slicked back, damp, like he'd walked through the rain without an umbrella. He didn't smile. Didn't introduce himself. Just turned to the chalkboard and started writing. The sound of chalk scratching across the board filled the room. And then I saw the name. Mr. Hallbrook. My stomach dropped. Because Mr. Hallbrook was our old teacher. The one who died last year. At first I thought it was a sick joke. Some twisted prank. But when I looked around, nobody else reacted. The other kids were scrolling through their phones, doodling in notebooks, whispering. It was like they didn't see what I saw. Like to them he was just some random substitute. But to me it was him. The same wrinkled hands. The same deep voice. The same habit of tapping the chalk against the board 3 times before setting it down. I remembered that sound. I remembered it too well. I kept glancing at the clock. The second hand ticked slower. Too slow. Every time I blinked, the room seemed darker. And when I looked down at my notebook, words had appeared across the page. I hadn't written them. It was his handwriting. Slanted. Messy. Sharp at the edges. The words read, "You're the only one who remembers me." My chest tightened. I slammed the notebook shut. The kid next to me didn't notice. He just kept scrolling TikTok like nothing was wrong. But Mr. Hallbrook was staring right at me now. Not at the class. At me. His eyes were sharp. Hungry. And when he spoke, the words seemed aimed at me alone. History always repeats itself. The lights flickered. And suddenly the chalkboard wasn't covered in lessons anymore. It was filled with drawings. Symbols I didn't recognize. Circles, lines, jagged shapes that seemed to crawl off the board and onto the walls. The rain outside pounded harder, drowning out the silence. And then I noticed something that froze my blood. Every student in the room had stopped moving. Phones frozen mid-scroll. Pens hovering above paper. Eyes blank, staring forward. Like mannequins. Like puppets. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" Mr. Hallbrook smiled. His teeth were too sharp. Too many. "You were in my class the day I died. You remember." My throat went dry. He was right. He'd collapsed in the middle of a lesson. Heart attack. We'd all sat there too shocked to move. But I remembered something else, something I'd buried deep. Right before he fell, he'd locked eyes with me. And whispered, Don't let me disappear. I stumbled out of my seat. My chair screeched against the tile. But no one moved. The class was frozen in place. I ran for the door. It wouldn't open. The handle turned, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, the chalk kept scratching. I turned. But Mr. Holbrook wasn't at the board anymore. The chalk was moving on its own, scrawling one sentence over and over again. You can't leave until I'm remembered. The room grew darker, shadows bleeding across the floor, and the frozen students began to whisper, all at once, in perfect unison. Stay, stay, stay. Their voices weren't theirs. They were his. Dozens of mouths moving, but only one voice filling the room. I pressed my palms against the door, praying it would open. When I turned back one last time, the desks were empty. Everyone was gone. Except me. And him. He was inches from my face now. His breath was cold. His eyes endless. You'll tell my story, he said. And then, the bell rang. Just like that, the lights flickered back. The room was normal again. Kids grabbed their bags, chatting, laughing as if nothing had happened. The sub was gone. The board was blank. Only my notebook remained. Every page filled with the same sentence, scrawled in his handwriting. He's still here. And to this day, whenever it rains, I hear the chalk tapping 3 times. Story 4, The Passenger. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, the passenger's seat was empty. I used to drive rideshare on weekends for extra cash. Most nights were boring, drunk college kids, tired business travelers, awkward small talk. But one ride nearly broke me. It was around midnight when the request came in. Pickup location, an empty stretch of road outside the city. I almost declined. It was out of the way, no streetlights, no houses nearby. But the search pricing was good and I needed the money. So I accepted. When I pulled up, the street was deserted. The only sound was my engine and the faint hiss of cicadas. Then I saw her. A woman standing at the side of the road. No luggage. No coat. Just a long black dress that swayed in the wind. She didn't wave. Didn't move. Just stared at my car until I unlocked the doors. Slowly, she slid into the back seat. Where to? I asked, forcing a smile. She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned forward, her voice a whisper. Just drive. I'll tell you when to turn. Her directions took me away from the city. Down roads I didn't recognize. No GPS route appeared. The app just showed a spinning wheel loading endlessly. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes too wide, unblinking. And every time I looked, she seemed closer. Like the gap between us was shrinking even though she hadn't moved. Finally, I cleared my throat. So, rough night? Her lips curled into a strange smile. You could say that. Her voice was deeper now. Not quite the same as before. I gripped the wheel tighter. Where exactly are we headed? She leaned closer, whispering so softly I almost didn't hear. Home. My phone buzzed with a notification. But when I glanced down, the screen was filled with text messages. Dozens of them. All from an unknown number. Each one said the same thing. Don't take her home. My blood ran cold. I slammed the brakes and spun around. The back seat was empty. My heart pounded. I swore I just heard her voice seconds ago. I hit the locks, my eyes darting across the dark road. And then, from the passenger seat beside me, a whisper. You missed the turn. I swerved, nearly crashing into a ditch. She was sitting there now in the front seat, her face inches from mine. Her smile stretched too wide. Her eyes were black. Keep driving, she hissed. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down. One last message. If you take her home, you'll never leave. I floored it, speeding toward the nearest gas station. My chest felt like it was caving in. But when I looked up at the GPS again, the destination wasn't the gas station. It was my house. She was laughing now. Oh, broken. Like static in human form. I pulled into the station anyway, screeching to a stop under the fluorescent lights. I jumped out, screaming for help. But when the clerk rushed outside, the car was empty. The passenger seat was spotless. No sign anyone had ever been there. I quit driving that night. Deleted the app. But sometimes, late at night, when I pass that gas station on my way home, I hear the back door of my car click shut. Even when I'm driving alone, and that's when I realized I was never the one taking her home. You've heard them all now. The stranger at the gas station. The elevator that never led where it should. The teacher who wasn't supposed to be there. And the passenger who never wanted to go home. Different places. Different people. But all with one thing in common. Evil wasn't hiding in some monster under the bed, or a ghost in the shadows. It was standing right in front of us. Smiling. Talking. Breathing the same air. That's the thing about real horror. It doesn't crawl out of graves. It doesn't sprout fangs or claws. It doesn't need to. Because the scariest monsters are human. So the next time you're out late, filling up your tank, riding an elevator, walking into class, or picking up a stranger on the side of the road, ask yourself one question. Do you really know who's standing beside you? Because sometimes, you don't realize the nightmare has already started. until it's too late. Evil doesn't hide in shadows. It hides in people we see every day.